Who is richer?
I had a conversation with Samson Goddy. He's a tech bro currently working in DevRel. We chatted about DevRel, the different paths to getting into DevRel, and what part of tech makes the most money.
So welcome. This is the seventh floor of my house. You press this button and it brings you more. You never go down and slow to the elevator.
Oh God, you're not serious.
You get it? Hi, my name is Samson Goddy. Let's take a wonderful open source community Africa. I'm basically someone that just loves doing vibes and inshallah on Twitter. So developer relations, or DevRel, as we know, is a very interesting field in tech, and I don't think it's been that long. Probably under 7 years or maybe last 6 years. There's multiple aspects of DevRel. There are people that want to stay in the community, there are people that want to stay in the code, and there are people that just want to be an awareness person, or basically a spokesman. So there are roles like developers advocacy, there are roles like developers evangelism, there are roles like developers evangelism, which is the typical developers evangelist that you know, or you hear someone say, oh, I'm a developers evangelist. That person is most likely a spokesman, like what we know as like hype man, comes and hype around the product. And there are people that are developers advocates. A typical developers advocate is someone that his or her or their job is not to necessarily talk a lot about the product from an awareness standpoint, but to relate the product to the potential customer or to the potential user. So if you're not knowledgeable in JavaScript, for example, I don't see how you excel as a developer's advocate, because your job is to basically stay on top of the JavaScript trend, basically even code on JavaScript, and also to relate JavaScript with the product to the potential users or to the potential customers. And then there are the community side of it. Like I said, right, there's the developers evangelism side, there's the community side, and then there's the events. So on the developers evangelism side, this is typically roles like developers evangelism and developers advocate. The developers evangelist in my team right now, his job is to basically hype, and is very outspoken. A developers advocate don't necessarily need to be outspoken, because his job is to maybe stay on YouTube, become a content person, either content on video or content on articles or text. So how I got into DevRel, I started as a software engineer. I started learning Python. It was awesome. And then as I started building more tools, the open source project I was contributing to was so awesome that I felt like nobody was talking about what we were building. So while building that, I was kind of doing a hybrid thing: build stuff, talk about it, build stuff, talk about it. And it was becoming a loop. And I was like, wait, at that time there was not like DevRel. So I started basically talking about, like, if I create something, I go to a conference and talk about what I created. And it became a thing. So they started calling me more of an evangelist. That was like what my title was when I started, and that was just like how I got into DevRel, because these are things that sometimes come natural to you, or is something that you have to learn. But because I was writing code when I started, and I wanted to tell the world and like everyone what I was working on, and that was how I just sort of just came into DevRel, and of course started learning more things as I advanced, because there's a lot of things that you have to learn in terms of like reporting and defining success and all that. So, but in terms of jumping into DevRel, it was because I wanted to talk about what I was doing, and nobody around that project was talking about it. So that's how I sort of got into DevRel.
I'm not going to sit well. I can't even sit well because Oga has taken the extra shape.
Very cool.
But it's alright. So you said that developer evangelism are the influencers of the product, basically, and then developer advocates are the ones that teach developers how to use the product.
Yeah.
And then there's the event side. So who goes for these events? Developer advocates or developer evangelists, or both?
It depends. It depends on the type of conference, right? So if there's a conference that is strictly on, again, it depends on the company you work for. Let's say you're going to AWS, for example, we would naturally send a more of like the question now becomes, if it's a conference that would have more of a IC developers, like people that will just, their job is just to code, they want to just code, you would naturally send a developer's advocate to come and relate with them.
Developer evangelist is the one that goes to preach about the product at the conference.
Yeah.
Developer advocate is the one that maybe shows you how to relate the product to you, shows you how to use this
as a developer.
Shows you how to use this latest feature that they added. You know, they are the people that maybe go for conferences and do code labs.
Code labs. Yeah.
So I've not seen anybody in any company that their role is developer evangelist.
Okay.
I always see, and I guess maybe that's where the confusion is coming from for me. I only always see developer advocates, and then I see developer advocates that are evangelizing, like you're saying.
Yeah.
But their role is developer advocates, and I see developer advocates that are advocating for developers, and that's what their role is. And I see developer advocates that are doing developer experience.
Yeah.
So is it that if you're a developer advocate, you have to, if your role isn't you're a DX person or you're an evangelist, is it that if you're a developer advocate, there's a chance that you might end up doing all these three things, or it just depends on the company?
Yes. The reason why you most likely do three things is because of how small the company is. If it's a really small company, you would wear many hats. You will code, you will write, you will speak, and you even do the evangelism, right? But if it's a much bigger team, as the company keeps growing, as your team keeps expanding, they start hiring people for specific reasons. DX, developers advocates, and...
So let's say I'm a junior engineer today, and I feel well, I really want to go into DevRel. Is there a path for me, or I have to start as an engineer first and then pivot to DevRel or something? Because that's what you did, and that's what I know that a lot of people did as well. So if I want to get into DevRel today, maybe fresh out of school, or I took a boot camp, I'm sure a junior, entry level, any company I'm coming into, I'm coming in either as an intern or a junior engineer. How would you advise me to go about that? Because I hardly see junior DevRel. I've not seen one before.
Yeah.
All the DevRel people that I know transitioned into DevRel from something, front-end engineering, technical writing, software engineering, back-end engineering, but there was a transitioning. It wasn't like I woke up and I'm like, developer advocacy is where I want to be, and that's how I landed here. So how?
So coming as a junior developer and trying to come into DevRel, I think again the same thing also boils down. It all depends on the company and how big the company is. There are some companies that will hire you and say, "Oh, we see you are someone that can learn fast. We trust you to learn on the role," and they'll put you on, I would say, not the senior kind of role, but kind of in the mid-level, where they'll say, "Okay, cool, at least you understand Python. Let's say Python. You're a junior in Python, and awareness is our goal. We want to it's not to convert. We just want the brand to be popular, and you're someone that has a potential influence. That's why sometimes the social presence might count as a way to ignore your juniority of okay, we don't really care about how junior you are, but we think you have someone that is very outspoken and you can shout on Twitter, and so awareness is our thing, and we're small, go for it." They will even place on the senior level role, but that is always very tricky, because sometimes as the business grow, the model change. They might say, "Oh, we don't care about money and we care about awareness," and then of course if it's that the case, the business starts suffering and they want more customers. They start telling you that, "Okay, you need to start changing your narrative, not necessarily leaving awareness, but kind of merging both. Do awareness, but also going out there, relate with people so that they can buy the product." That's where the seniority comes into play. That's where the seniority for me in developers advocate is more of you being a strategist of okay, how many articles do I want to...
And sort of you having that experience, because you've worked with this tech, you've been there. So you put yourself in the shoe of the developer, so you kind of know where it pinches.
Exactly.
So when you're relating with them, you don't have to communicate with them. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now I have one final question to ask you. This is the important question. So let's look at people that are doing software engineering. And that good at doing them. Who is Richard?
Choco. Wow.
See, I'm sorry. Adorables, if this is your most important question, leave a comment so that I can be asking more people that I'm interviewing this, because it's an important question. Who is Richard there? Answer.
I would say this might be biased, but I would say developers advocacy.
Why?
It depends. Again, they might be richer, but it depends. Developers advocacy closer to marketing would most likely have higher pay and higher budgets. Engineering is a bit complex, except engineering comes with DX, where like they are optimizing for like having larger budget.
So what if developer advocacy is developer advocacy on its own? So what if like in the company they do sales and marketing and their budget is different? They have the advocacy budget and then they have the engineering budget. So now I understand what you are saying with developer advocacy getting their budget from marketing but doing a lot of things with engineering. I get that because I've seen it multiple times. But like, let's talk about these three different entities now standing alone and having their individual budgets. Who do you think is richer?
So personally, I think it's, even if they are separate, engineering, developers advocacy, and marketing, the traditional marketing, developers advocacy, and engineering, I think it depends on who they report to, right? If the company will say, oh, we trust you guys to have a seat on the executive, like a VP of DevRel or chief of DevRel or something, right? Then it all depends on what the company wants to prioritize on. They might say, okay, we might match developers advocacy budget as how we spend on marketing, but at the end of the day, advocacy in that line would still most likely make more money, especially if the company is like they are optimizing for awareness and like acquisition.
Okay. Thank you.
But it depends.